Hello friends, Jason here, and in honor of it being Foster Care Awareness Month, I just wanted to share a little bit of my unexpected journey as a dad in foster care. So when we moved to San Antonio in 2011, my wife Kelly and I had really not been exposed much to foster care, and we really had no idea what it was. But the church that we joined was very active with a foster adopt ministry, and we were around a lot of families, and we began to see it up close. And I remember one day, Kelly said to me, Jason, I think that God may be calling us to be a foster family. And my immediate response in that moment was, no way. I just thought, with our three bio kids, I don't feel like I'm succeeding the way that I'd like as a father. And I just can't imagine how adding another child or more children who have likely experienced trauma or come out of difficult circumstances would be in any way helpful. But God continued to work, and Kelly was very, very patient and perhaps just praying during that time. And I remember that God did move us to a place where that we were together, and this was something we felt like God was calling us to do. And I knew it was the case when I was sitting in Phoenix in the fall of 2019, and I remember just sharing with my dad and stepmom and some family friends that about our journey and how that God had led us to this decision to become a licensed foster family. And as I was talking about it, and as I was talking about the need, I just remember I started to tear up, and I just felt so much emotion talking about this difficult circumstances these families in crisis go through and the children themselves. And it really moved me, and I just realized that this had become a passion of mine. So in January of 2020, we were licensed as a foster family, and within a week, we had our first placement. I remember I was on campus at the university that I work at here in San Antonio, and I received a call from Kelly around 11 a.m. or so. And as she spoke, her voice was quavering a little bit, kind of quaking a little bit, and I realized something was up. The night before, we received a call about a 10-month-old, and we thought that perhaps they were going to place him in our home, but we never got a call back. And then Kelly, as she spoke to me that morning, she said, the 10-month-old doesn't need a home, but they just let me know that there is a brand new newborn who's coming home from the hospital today, and they wanted to know if you want him. And we had prayed, and so we said yes. And by 6 p.m. that evening, the Child Protective Services, CPS worker, our agency's worker, and the child were in our home. And they were leaving the child with us. And that was the day that we got to meet Joseph. And since that day, I can't even tell you the mix of amazing emotions that we've had. There's just been, just highs and incredible sadness, too, about just the reality of how difficult these circumstances can be. And so I remember in the spring of 2020, around April or so, this is after the COVID-19 pandemic had really kind of started to just surge that spring, was in the backyard with the family doing a picnic. And as I took some dishes into the house and came back out to pick up Joseph, I bent down to pick him up, and I remember looking at his little onesie outfit. And it was the first time I noticed that day, but it was little pictures of a big bear with a little bear fishing, a big bear with a little bear throwing a ball, and it just said my dad and me. And in that moment, I just felt so many emotions. I just felt strong emotions for Joseph and his situation with his birth family. And then I also felt this strong affirmation of Jason, you are those things for Joseph right now and maybe longer. And not only that, Joseph has a Father in heaven who loves him and who cares for him more than any earthly father ever could. Those emotions were so strong in that moment. It's hard to describe, but just an affirmation of that this is the right thing, even though it's hard. So we didn't think it was going to happen so quickly, but in November of 2020, we received notification in a court hearing that, Joseph needed a forever home, that adoption was a possibility. And we had prayed about that possibility as well. And we said yes. We just felt like that was exactly what God wanted us to do. We just so loved that little guy. And so with great joy, on April the 15th of 2021, before a judge, on Zoom, and with our family and friends, we swore and were legally made Joseph's forever mom and dad. And that is just such a tremendous story. I can't even express all the emotion that I feel thinking about that day. And so maybe just a few quick questions to answer as it relates to this journey that maybe you have had, maybe you've had for us, or you've had for others in fostering and foster adoption. And so I just want to talk about that for just a minute. First question, how has this affected your marriage? You know, I thought that this was actually the last thing that Kelly and I needed. But what's been amazing is that as we've entered into this journey of fostering and bringing children into our home, it's actually brought Kelly and I closer together. And there's just something so deeply fulfilling about knowing that we're doing something that's so needed but so right. And so I've actually grown closer to Kelly than I ever have through this journey of fostering and now adoption. I have to give the disclaimer that things are hard. There's just a lot less time for all kinds of things, including us getting time to communicate and talk. So we've had to get creative with that. But this journey has just been enhanced our marriage. Having said that, let me also quickly acknowledge that I know fostering, adoption is not for everyone. Not everybody's called to this, and you need to pray and you need to make sure that it's God's will if He's calling you to do this. Another question, how has fostering affected your bio children? This is honestly one of the main reasons why we almost chose not to foster. We really felt like that this could be a bad thing for our birth children. And I remember one day I was sitting in a Starbucks in Dallas, Texas, and I was waiting for my graduation ceremony from a graduate degree that I was getting from a university in Dallas at that point. And a guy walked in and sat down and started talking with me. And he was talking about his journey, his family's journey of fostering and adoption also. And as he shared, I confessed to him, I just said, one of the main reasons we may not do this is because we feel like this could be the worst thing for our bio kids. And he got very serious and he looked at me and he said, Jason, this could potentially be the best thing that ever happens to your bio kids. And looking back, there was a lot of truth in what he was saying. I think we've realized now, and just seeing the effect it's had on our bio kids, about how that they just so quickly embraced Joseph as their little brother. And I think they just realized that there was a need there. And also something about just the way that it forces us outside of ourselves. And it has been really good for our bio kids. And I don't think we know the half of the impact of it. Another question that we wrestled with, and maybe that you've had about people who foster or who do adoption, is I've heard it's very expensive. Children are very expensive, or fostering or adoption can be expensive. What about the expenses? How are you affording this? How are you affording more kids? To that, my first response would be, and children are such a blessing, how can we not afford children? And that's the way we felt about every single one of our bio kids, and that's the way we feel about Joseph. But to answer the practical side of that, just to say that in, I believe, every state, and certainly here in the state of Texas, the state does pay you some money every day that a child is placed in foster care in your home. It's not a lot of money. I wouldn't encourage anybody to go into it for the money, but I would say that in our case, the amount that we've been paid by the state has always more than covered our expenses for fostering. And then as it relates to adoption, adoption out of foster care, that's actually paid for by the state of Texas as well. You need to make sure that that is true in your state, but for us, fostering and adoption for Joseph has just been a very affordable process. It's not been a burden at all financially. I'd also say that too, our agency here in San Antonio, our foster agency, is a Christian agency, and they have been such a blessing to us. They have a vault, it's literally called the Vault, here where we can go, and we've been able to get almost anything that we needed in terms of cribs, pack and plays, car seats, high chairs. We've gotten some of all those things for Joseph, and it made it extremely, extremely affordable to do this. Finally, one final question. Maybe you've seen on social media or heard that Joseph had a little brother this year, 2021, and he was actually placed in our home for a month, his first month out of the hospital, and he's now with another family. How has that been for you? And how can you, another question that comes up often is, how can you take these children into your home knowing that they may go with another family, they may not stay with you? And to that, I just want to say, yes, we don't know what's going to happen with Joseph's little brother's case, but it has been such a blessing. If 1 month is all we have with him, it was worth it. And one of the things that these children most need in a fostering placement is they need somebody to bond with them, an adult caregiver to bond with them. And whether that's for 1 month, 1 year, or for a lifetime, it's worth it. Does it hurt? Does it pull at your heartstrings? Absolutely. But it's so worth it. And it really is about these children experiencing the love, the connection, the bonding with a father figure, a mother figure, to help them thrive and grow and connect. Then just a final word about how this journey of fostering as a dad has affected my faith. I would just say that having Joseph, having his little brother in our home, has shown me a side of God and his faithfulness that I just never could have imagined. It's deepened my prayer life. It's caused me to be more dependent on God than I ever could have imagined. And it's also just grown my heart for the city that we live in, and just seeing a different side of the city that I was not aware of before. And with that, when we adopted Joseph, there was just this picture of God's adoption of us into his family as children. And so when Jesus Christ died for us and rose again, by faith in him, we're able to be adopted into the family of God and to have a life that is completely as a child of God. And I just saw a picture of that I didn't imagine. So on April the 16th, the day after we had adopted Joseph, I didn't think anything was going to be different. But it was. And he was never not our son. From the moment we brought him into the home, we treated him as our son. But the goal was always reunification with his birth family, and we longed for that if that was God's will. But the moment that he became our son, it's just hard to explain the emotion that you feel, and that I imagine that God feels for each of his children who are adopted into his family through Jesus. And so whoever you are, wherever you're watching this from, if you are a follower of Christ, I pray that you would know that that truth is true for you. And if you're not a Christian, not a follower of Christ, I pray that you would know that that truth can be true for you, that God longs for us, each of his children, to come home and to be adopted into his family, and most especially through faith in Jesus and the forgiveness we have available in him. So I hope this is an encouraging message to you. Feel free to reach out to my wife, Kelly, and I anytime with questions if you'd like to talk more or just have questions. And thank you for watching.